Before going into the upcoming tutorial, it's useful to have a general understanding of the edgeEngine architecture. Getting an edgeEngine microservice up and running requires some work. Understanding why you're going to do that work will help you see the big picture. It all has to do with how edgeEngine enables access to the mimik cloud and the mimik networking infrastructure. The most important thing to understand about microservices running under edgeEngine is that they run in a serverless manner. So how does that happen? Well, what's going to happen is you're going to install both the mimik CLI tool and the mimik edgeEngine on your local machine. And mimik edgeEngine has a number of components. The most important component is the API gateway, which is also bound to a single HTTP server that's controlled by edgeEngine Runtime. Now, what will happen is when you call a microservice, which you're going to install later on, when you call a microservice's endpoint, the API gateway will create an ephemeral runtime, which will actually invoke the logic of the endpoint and return a response. Then, once that activity is over, once the endpoint does its work, the runtime will go away. It's ephemeral. And this is true for any endpoint that you call through edgeEngine. So in this case, we have microservice 1, endpoint 1. That's going to create a runtime endpoint 1. When we call endpoint 2, it'll create a runtime 2. That'll call endpoint 2. And the same with microservice 2, endpoint 1. Every time an endpoint is called, edgeEngine Runtime will create an ephemeral runtime and execute the logic, and then it'll go away. So that's one part that's really important. The other part is understanding the function of the CLI tool. The CLI tool, as you'll learn, will be used to deploy edgeEngine OCI compliant images and make containers based on those images. The other thing that the CLI tool will do is it will allow you to ask mimik cloud to get an access token, and it will pass that access token on to edgeEngine. And the reason you need that access token is to interact with mimik network services and the mimik cloud. So what is it you get when you get access to the mimik network services? Well, the thing you get is access to the edgeEngine service mesh. And the edgeEngine service mesh allows you to interact with the network in 3 different ways. One way is called a proximity cluster, which will give you access to other edgeEngine devices running in close proximity to you. The other one is networking, the network cluster, which will give you access to edgeEngine devices in a network domain or in your local area network. And the third thing that the service mesh allows you to do is to access services based on the account that the service belongs to. And you're going to see account activity when you do any of the tutorials that are going to be coming up. So what are the features the edgeEngine network provides? It gives you node discovery, it gives you service discovery, it gives you secure tunneling and zero trust security. Also, the edgeEngine service mesh and networking capabilities provide observability and analytics. So there you go. That's what edgeEngine is about. And now you're going to take a tutorial that's going to show you a particular detail about how to work with edgeEngine. The objective of this track is to demonstrate how to get the mDebug web utility up and running from within the Instruqt interactive learning environment. The mDebug web utility allows developers who have accounts registered within the mimik developer console to view information about the clusters within the edgeEngine service mesh. And this information can be viewed from within a web page as shown in the figure below. As you'll see, developers can view cluster information according to account, network, or proximity. This scenario is divided into the following topics. Topic 1, installing mimik edgeEngine Runtime. Topic 2, installing the mimik command line interface tool. Topic 3, creating a mimik account. Topic 4, creating a mimik project. Topic 5, creating a developer ID token. Topic 6, creating an access token. Topic 7, associating the access token. Topic 8, downloading and starting the mDebug microservice. Topic 9, starting the mDebug web utility, and Topic 10, using the mDebug web utility. This scenario is completely interactive. The instructions you will be given will be executed directly in a terminal window that's embedded in the Instruqt interactive learning environment. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is to install the edgeEngine runtime. So step 1, we're going to download the tar file from GitHub. And then we're going to uncompress the tar file. Then we're going to go into the working directory where the tar file code has been uncompressed. And then we're going to start edgeEngine in the background. That's step 4. And we're going to use the no-up command. Okay, so edgeEngine is running in the background. And let's just clear the screen, because we can. Okay, next step is installing the CLI tool. Okay, we installed the CLI tool using npm install because it's a Node application. So we'll paste the command, step 1 command. Okay, then to verify that the CLI tool has been installed, we'll run the edgeEngine CLI account get me command. And as you can see, get me is returning a response. That means edgeEngine's up and running, but it doesn't know what account the instance of edgeEngine has to bind to. And we'll do that in upcoming lessons. But for now, we've gotten the CLI tool up and running, so let's move on to creating a mimik account. Okay, so to create a mimik account, we need to go to the mimik developer web console. And that's out here. And I'm already logged in, so I don't need to create an account. But if I wasn't a known user, I'd have to click the Create Account button and go through the steps there. But since I've already done it, I'm not going to run through the steps. You can read that in the documentation. Okay, so the next step is to create a project. And to create a project, what we do is we sign in to the web console, and we can create either an Edge project or an Edge hybrid project. In this case, let's take a look at Edge projects, and there's a Create Project button, and this will take you through the steps of creating a project. Since I've already done this work, I have a project called Simple Project that we'll use throughout the remainder of this tutorial. So next we need to create the developer ID token. So to create a developer ID token, I need to go back to the developer console. And I need to go into the project, and you'll see that there's a button called Get ID Token. So I click this button to create the ID token. So let's do that. And the developer token, the developer ID token. So I've created the developer ID token by clicking the Get ID Token button. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to copy the developer ID token as an environmental variable value. And the environment variable I'm going to use is developer underscore ID underscore token. So I click the copy icon on the right. I'm going to paste it in. And that's the developer ID token. And now I've assigned it to the environmental variable developer underscore ID token. So let's export to bash RC. And the reason we need to export the environment variable to bash RC is because Instruqt doesn't persist environment variables between lessons. So we export to bash RC to make sure the developer underscore ID underscore token variable is always available. So step 4, we've exported to bash RC. And the next thing we need to do is to create an edge access token. Okay, so let's confirm the developer ID token is indeed working. It has a value, which it does. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create the access token using the developer ID token. And that's step 2. So let's paste it. And the command we'll use is mimic edge CLI account get edge access token -t, which stands for token option, and will provide a developer ID token. And we'll send the output to access token.json using the pre-installed JQ utility. Okay, so that's worked. And then in step 3, we're going to take the contents of the JSON file and put it into an environment variable called access_token. And we're going to strip out the quotation mark that gets copied into the environment variable because we don't want that. So we're going to strip that out. And then we're going to take a look at the access token. Okay, and the access token has been saved to the environment variable. And now we're going to export it to bash RC so it persists between lessons. Okay, so the next step is associating the edge access token to the account. So the access token will give us, allow the microservice to have access into the mimic service mesh and all the accompanying features that mimic offers, but we need to bind it to an account because we've created the access token on the machine. And now we need to let mimic know about the access token. Okay, so let's echo the access token in step 1 to make sure it's still there, that it's been persisted between lessons. It has. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is associate the access token. So to do that, we'll use the CLI command, mimic edge CLI account associate, and for the -t option, which is the token option, we'll provide the access token. And we'll port the output to JQ. And you can see now that the token, access token, has been successfully associated, and you can see that it now has the account ID. So this means that this machine is known to the mimic ecosystem, and that's good. Okay, so next thing we need to do is to download the mDebug microservice and start it up. Okay, so we're going to curl the microservice from GitHub, and it's called mdebug-v1-1.2.20 tar, and that's the microservice image. Okay, so now we need to deploy the image, and this is very similar to the way Kubernetes works, is that you create an image, which is a template of the microservice, and then you deploy the image as a container into memory, the machine's memory. And in this case, we are going to deploy the edge microservice image as a container, but it's a mimic container. But we'll see that in upcoming lessons. All right, so let's go to here. And we're going to use the mimic edge CLI image deploy command. And we're going to say, it says, what image do you want me to deploy? And we're going to use the mDebug v-1.2.2.0 tar. And that's the one that we downloaded up here. And we're going to associate it using the access token. We're going to deploy it using the access token. Excuse me. Okay, great. So we've gotten some output, and this means that the image has been successfully deployed on the machine. So the next thing we need to do is to create a start.json file. And the start.json file is the file that provides the configuration information that the running microservice will use to represent itself. So we'll cat this contents into a file called start.json. We mean by this content. Okay, so let's do that, and let's take a look at the actual contents of the start.json file. And there it is. You can see it, and there's an owner code 123. That owner code is going to become important in upcoming lessons. All right, and so what we need to do is we need to deploy the container now. We have the image, now we're going to deploy the microservice container, which is a special to Mimic. It's a special Mimic container that is CRI compliant, but nonetheless we still have to deploy it. So we're going to do mimic edge CLI container deploy, and we're going to say the start.json is the start.json file, and we're going to use the access token as the token, and we're going to port the output to JQ, and JQ in turn will send it to a file called mDebug.json. So let's go. Okay, good. So let's take a look at cat mDebug.json. And that is step 6. And you can see that the microservice, the mDebug microservice, is up and running and started as reflected in the state command down at the bottom. Okay, great. So now we need to export the owner code. Okay, so we're going to export the owner code, and this is the owner code. So what will happen is that we will read the value of an owner code in the JSON file and put it into an environmental variable called owner_code. So let's do that. Wait, excuse me, wrong command there. Let me go back. Okay, so we're going to export the owner code. Okay, and then we're going to echo the owner code. Just make sure it's stuck. And then the last thing we're going to do is send the owner code to bashrc so it can be used in the next lesson. Okay, there we go. So the next thing we're going to do is get the mDebug utility up and running in a web page. So let's go through. Okay, so let's start that. So we need to get the mDebug URL, and this is the endpoint that will be published by which we will access the microservice. The thing to remember about Mimic is that all microservices running under the Mimic engine run in a serverless environment. There is one web server called the Universal Web Server, and that routes all requests coming in to the Mimic Edge engine to a specific serverless microservice. And in this case, that serverless microservice will be located at the location of mDebug_URL. So we have that, and we've done step 1. Let's take a look at step 2, which is we strip out some quotation marks we don't need. Okay, in step 3, let's echo mDebug_URL. Okay, and this is the endpoint. Actually the routing endpoint by which the microservice will be located. Okay, now we're going to do the Instruqt URL, which is the complete URL to access the mDebug microservice from outside of this machine. And this machine is running in an Instruqt VM, so we need a way to get to it from the outside world. Okay, and let's see here. Okay, and this is the complete path to mDebug. Okay. And you can see here that's step 5. So in step 6, the next thing we need to do is open up the mDebug web page in a browser. So we're going to copy this URL. We're going to open a new window. We're going to paste it in. And this is the mDebug web page. So the microservice is successfully running. Okay, so let's save the mDebug URL value and the Instruqt URL value to bash RC. Okay, next step is to actually use the mDebug webpage. Okay, so step one is we need to get the owner code that we've stored previously. And step two is we need to get the access token, which we stored previously. Okay, and then step three is we need to go into the mDebug UI and copy both values in. So that's what we'll do. So let's go get the owner code first. Let's see if I copied it properly. Oh, now I did. And let's go get the access token. And let's put that in the access token text box. And let's do a send, and this will get the information about this microservice as well as all other microservices running under the mimic service mesh. So let's go send. Okay, and you can see we got a response. And this is the network. So this is all of the microservices that are running within this particular network. There are other views we can get of the service mesh. One view is proximity. This will give us all the microservices running around us. And the other one is account. This will give us all the microservices running under a particular account. And the account is the place where we created these mimic projects. So there you have it. That's how to get mDebug up and running. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and I hope you take the time to interact with the tutorial on Instruqt at the embed URL we're providing along with this video.